everyone.
Hello, people.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Cole, as always.
And you're listening to Borrowed Bones, a family podcast. Whether we are related by blood or by bond, we know families can bring us up or tear us down. We all have skeletons from our past, so sit back and listen closely to the history we've borrowed and secrets it holds. Ooh. Today, we are recording our first Jonestown installment.
Ooh.
I'm going to call them installments because they will be like bottle episodes. They'll be on their own. There won't be a part 1, part 2, part 3. Yeah. And if you're not familiar with Jonestown, it is, I don't know how you would explain it.
It was a agricultural project started by the group People's Temple, what would be called a cult or a new religious movement, or a less loaded term than cult. But yeah, they existed in the 60s, 70s, and Jonestown was their agricultural commune in Guyana, South America.
Yeah. So People's Temple, that is the church, that is the religious affiliation.
Yeah, the organization, the
organization.
Entity.
Jonestown is where they went.
Yeah, it was
in
the
Guyana.
physical town. Yeah.
All right. So we have found ourselves in, Cole has really found himself in, I don't know how else to say it, the Jonestown community.
Yeah.
People's Temple
the world
community.
Of researchers and survivors and relatives of victims and perpetrators. And
You talk to people that were there and survived Jonestown. You've spoken to people that have family members that have passed away or were murdered at Jonestown. Yeah. But the way you got your foot in the door is through your own local reporting about a woman here in Bay City, Michigan, who moved away when she was 18, made it to the West Coast, and found herself a member of the People's Temple. And she did die.
Yeah, she died in Jonestown
with her family.
Family of, with herself included, family of 4, her husband and her 2 children.
In this discovery, you were able to speak with quite a few people, including Stephen Jones.
Yes. Yeah, he's the son of Jim Jones, the founder of People's Temple.
Yeah. So while you were unearthing our local person...
I was trying to speak with surviving members who had firsthand memories of her, knew her in Jonestown or even before that, and their recollections of her. I was able to connect with Stephen Jones, who did recall her and her family.
Yeah, that was very interesting. He has firsthand accounts. And then you also spoke with the leading authorities of Jonestown when doing your research.
Yes, Rebecca Moore and Fielding Mac McGee, husband and wife duo, who run the Jonestown Institute and the associated website, Alternative Considerations of Jonestown and People's Temple. It's kind of a treasure trove of firsthand documents and accounts of... It's the ground zero for everything People's Temple in Jonestown. Wow.
We will definitely link that in our show notes, or anyone who wants to do a very deep dive into People's Temple, Jonestown, individual stories.
Yeah, it's staggering the amount of resources available on that website.
And we have captured a couple different stories from different perspectives as well. And I just wanted to approach each Jonestown story in a personal way and tell each person's story from their perspective. Let them be the main character.
Individual,
and not Jim Jones.
Not the institution as a whole. Yeah, there's 900 plus people who died, but you lose the individuality with numbers, the big numbers, the psychic numbing of, if close to 1,000 people died, it gets less attention than if 2 people died in a weird way.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what we do to process.
But as the group, the name Jonestown has taken over the group identity. And so they're all just lumped into one in this
public consciousness.
Right.
Yeah.
And this story here is about Shirlee Fields from Bay City, Michigan.
Yeah.
Now, Shirlee Fields was a small-town woman who found herself in the midst of a national and historical tragedy. You and I are from Bay City.
Yes.
So this is a very personal story for us. We were able to see certain buildings that are from Shirley's time.
Yeah.
You got to speak with people that she knew as well.
Yeah, some former grade school classmates who are still alive in Bay City.
Now, how did you discover the connection? No one was aware from Bay City, or people in the People's Temple, Jonestown community, they weren't aware that Shirlee Fields was from Bay City.
Yeah.
And people from Bay City weren't aware that Shirlee Fields died in Jonestown.
Correct. Yeah, I spoke with her old grade school friends who didn't even know she was dead for certain, let alone that she died. It's such a historic incident.
So how did Shirlee Fields cross your radar?
Well, I've always been, as you know, into People's Temple in Jonestown, just had a healthy curiosity in researching it. And I was on the aforementioned website one day a few years ago, and it features a list of all 918 people who died on that day, November 18th, 1978. And the list features their hometown. So I just did a word search out of curiosity to see if there was any Michigan natives. And there were several. And there was one from Bay City, Michigan. And I saw it was Shirlee Fields.
Oh, so Mac and Rebecca knew
Yes,
that Shirlee Fields was from Bay City, Michigan. It just hadn't gotten back to us yet.
To the Bay City, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes, yeah. Like the people in People's Temple knew she was from Bay City, but they didn't know what Bay City. It wasn't, she's from some small town in Michigan. Who cares?
Exactly.
But yeah, word never got back to Bay City, Michigan, that she had joined People's Temple.
Yeah. I would like to do a quick overview of Jonestown and Jim Jones. This will not be a deep dive into Jonestown. We will learn a lot through Shirley's story and through her family's story. However, just to get an idea of what we're working with here, if you've not heard about it, Jim Jones was the leader. Jones was from Indiana, and he married...
Midwest guy.
Yep, Midwest guy. What's the name of his wife's?
Marceline.
His wife's name, sorry.
Yeah.
Marceline. Okay. So he married Marceline, and he had a child, Stephen. Eventually, they would adopt...
They adopted several kids. Stephen was his only biological son with Marceline. They adopted several sons and daughters, different races, to...
The Rainbow family.
Yeah, that's what he marketed it as, was this trend-setting 1950s adopting children from various ethnic backgrounds. Yeah.
And as his congregation grew, he eventually had enough of a following, started his own church, calling it People's Temple. When was People's Temple founded? Was that in the 50s?
I believe it was the late 50s. It changed names for a little bit when it first started, and it kind of started under the wing of another established church until it broke off onto its own thing. But I don't quote me on the, well, as we're being recorded, but late 50s, it became its own.
Yeah. People's Temple began with like a Christian base of ideas. It was kind of
the
whole
a
umbrella.
Jones had studied religion as a youth and kind of picked and chose the elements he liked from different Christian denominations and kind of put them in a melting pot so it appealed to everyone. Yeah.
But the main focus was on social justice and equality. And I believe Mac was the one that said this. If Jim Jones stayed in Indiana, he would most likely have been known as a great civil rights leader of the Midwest.
Yeah. Had he, not done what he did and stayed put and kept challenging people's
Just
ideas
leave well
of
enough alone.
Race
Leave well enough alone.
Yeah.
Jim then took his congregation and his family to California. Do you know why he went to California?
He claimed that he had a vision of a nuclear holocaust that was imminent, and he had read a magazine. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a magazine that had an article of like the 10 or 12 ideal places in the globe to withstand nuclear fallout, and he selected one of those locations was in California. So he told his flock, the end's coming, we got to move. And then when the end didn't come, they kind of just forgot about that.
They really thought there was like an end time coming.
Yeah, or at least that's what he...
Well, that's what he said.
And
okay.
Obviously that came and went without...
I didn't realize how early on he started with that doomsday talk. Well, as time went on, People's Temple kind of lost sight of its original goal. It started dropping some of the Christian values and started picking up some Eastern religion ideas.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, the main concern was all the social, real world, what did he call it? Not Pentecostal or ecumenical, evangelical socialism.
Oh, Eventually, though, he started to compare himself to God and making his flock completely devoted to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was a lot of paranoia when the authorities began to move in due to some reports of abuse and physical punishments from the People's Temple that started in California, right?
Yes, yeah. And so there was publications coming out questioning the inner workings of the church. What are they doing? Are they skimming funds? Are they abusing members?
Okay.
Can members leave of their own volition if they want? That kind of thing.
So all of this started happening in California, and that's something I always forget, is that he basically wound up his congregation, and by the mid to late 1970s, that's when he's like, we're fleeing to Guyana.
Yes.
We're being chased out. It's the them against us.
We're going to the promised land because the militant, corrupt government in the U.S. won't let us be. They're coming after us.
Right. And that was exactly what Jim Jones wanted. He wanted to have that full control of everyone, and it wasn't very long before November 18th, 1978 comes about.
Yeah.
And Jones leads his congregation to mass suicide by drinking a mixture of cyanide, tranquilizers, and Flavor Aid.
Yes.
An off-brand of Kool-Aid. And this is where we get that phrase.
Yeah, the unfortunate don't drink the Kool-Aid phrase.
So if you ever hear don't drink the Kool-Aid, people are referring to the Flavor Aid that people were forced to drink. They did not choose this. Some might have, but
yeah, some
we'll
did,
get into
but
it.
It's complicated. There's no...
It's very complicated.
Yeah, murder,
it's very
suicide,
individual.
depends on your perspective.
Mm-hmm. You are referencing a whole community of people that were lives forever changed, lives taken, lives stolen and gone, and all you're doing is just flippantly saying, don't drink the Kool-Aid because you're being stupid or something.
Yeah, it's a punchline of a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just try not to say that.
Remember that 300 plus children died.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about murder, suicide for the rest, the children were inarguably murdered.
Right. These are real people who wanted to do good in the world, and they were horribly manipulated and murdered. And Shirlee Fields was someone that I wanted to follow her life and her family through this time and see how someone could end up drinking poison willingly.
And she's a good one to focus on because she's not one that a lot of historians have focused on. Yeah.
Because she's from Bay City.
Me too.
Right. Small Midwest city of around 31,000.
Yeah,
it kind of fluctuates here or there.
Most recent census, I think, was 30 or 31,000.
Yeah. I like to call it not too big, not too small, kind of just right, Goldilocks style.
Yeah.
You don't literally know everyone, but you are going to see people you do know when you leave the house.
Yeah.
Now, who is Shirlee and how did she end up in Guyana all the way from Bay City, Michigan?
All right. So Shirlee Fields was born Shirley Miller in Bay City in 1937. She was the middle of three daughters. Her parents were Russian Jewish immigrants, and her dad owned a drugstore in Bay City. He was a pharmacist, and the building still stands. So she and her sisters went to school, worked in their dad's shop.
Yeah, the building, though, so it was called Miller's Drugstore, right? So he was like the local town pharmacist.
Yeah, local pharmacist in the neighborhood.
Right. And you went and saw that building,
Yeah, the building's
right?
still there. It's unoccupied right now. It's a freestanding one-story business building.
And Shirley's older sister's name is Marilyn.
Yes.
And her younger sister's name is Dolores.
Yes.
This building that is still there today that I drive by all the time, and so do you. It's pretty. I wish someone would do something with it because it's just kind of sitting there empty. But it has the name Marilyn on the top out of the stone. So I think that's really neat. It doesn't say Shirley, but it's the firstborn daughter.
It's the firstborn, so...
And it's still there. So I don't know who owns it, but whoever owns it, please do something. You were able to meet up with a couple of Shirley's old classmates and childhood friends, right?
Yes, 2 of them.
Ruth and Colleen.
Yes.
Right. And I remember when you went to go, I was at home and you were getting ready to leave to go meet with them and the photographer. You came home and you were so excited. They were so nice. And they were really astounded by your story of Shirley.
Yeah. One of the weird things I found, I thought this is one of the weirdest, was her high school graduating class did reunions over the years. And I found ads in our local newspaper in the 90s and early aughts for them basically asking for her to contact them for the reunion. They had like a name of like 5 or 6 classmates they just found out they couldn't find, and they were asking these 5 or 6 to reach out to them with their current addresses or whatever, and they had her listed there. Wow. So no one really knew that she died in Guyana.
Yeah. So what did they say, or were you the one that told Ruth and Colleen of Shirley's fate?
Yeah, they had no idea. I mean, obviously they were familiar with Jonestown,
right?
But it was weird that, I mean, Bay City's, like you said, you may not know everybody, but when you leave the house, you're going to run into somebody you do know. Mm-hmm. And it's a very small, tight-knit family has been here for generations. Yeah. It's shocking to me that no one locally had ever pieced together what happened to her.
Yeah, and I have a few quotes from your article, actually. Yeah, I'm going to be linking. Cole is my source for today. Cole and Mac and Rebecca.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. But you guys know everything, so it's great. I did see in your article that Ruth had a few quotes, and so did Colleen, but Ruth said, "I am absolutely shocked that she would get involved in something like that. It's hard to believe. She came from a very good family, a very strong family. How do you explain something like that? I still have a hard time thinking, how did that happen to her?"
Yeah.
Man.
And like you mentioned, People's Temple was ostensibly a Christian denomination, but Shirley was Jewish, and that shows that People's Temple could open its doors to all backgrounds. You could not be a Christian to join, but you could join for the social outreach, the political causes, so to speak.
Yeah. Ruth remembers Shirley was a popular girl and an overall good person, along with her entire family. Ruth also said Shirley was just an everyday, normal, nice-looking girl.
Yeah.
Just nothing crazy, nothing really stood out too much.
I remember they said that they would, they'd visit her dad's pharmacy, and that their teachers would often ask Shirley to bring them items from their dad's store.
The teachers would?
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, oh, you're working at your dad's store, so tomorrow bring me in something. And she would do that. So she was kind of known as the pharmacist's daughter.
Oh, nice. And then Colleen also was an old friend of Shirley's, and they went to elementary and high school together. Colleen does say that they weren't super close, but she still remembers that she went to Shirley's birthday party once, and remembers Shirley being a nice, quiet girl that never got into any trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, very Midwest, very easy peasy. Everyone from Bay City could be described this way. I mean, I'm not quiet, but
back in that era.
Back then, yeah.
Late 30s, 40s.
Now, you found a lot of newspaper articles with Shirley and or her family.
Yeah.
But they were
like little briefs. Yeah. It was weird what made it into the newspaper 70, 80 years ago. Yeah. It was like
back when local news was very, very local.
One was like, Shirley Miller, 13, returns to Bay City after visiting her aunt for a week in Detroit. That was an article. Or, her family is hosting a birthday party for her in the backyard. Guests are welcome. Yeah,
I saw one. There was an article that you referenced talking about 11-year-old Shirley and her older sister Marilyn going to the YWCA's camp on Loon Lake up in Iosco County.
It's an hour and a half roughly from
that's like a normal thing. Yeah. It's very common to go up to Iosco County for the day even and just go swimming in the lake. But that's what they want to talk about. And so we know quite a bit about Shirley, at least in her early years. Yeah. For Shirley's 13th birthday in December of 1950, she had her own gala at the Winona Hotel.
which is no longer there.
No longer there. Went down
Burned
in a
to the
fire.
There's a planetarium there now.
Yep. For anyone who knows, that's where the big orange planetarium is now.
Looks like an upside-down KFC bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So she graduates high school in Bay City and moves to Colorado for college. She was apparently pretty popular in college. I found some photos of her from college publications, her in her dorm, and just,
Yeah, I saw that she was asked or voted or something to be a pinup girl for the Colorado Engineer magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also saw that she was a part of multiple clubs while she was in college, and the newspaper was really keeping track of her. But how was it keeping track of her when she left? Did her parents give the newspaper information, or
they
how
had
does
to
that
have?
happen?
I'm guessing the era of like their parents to kind of have bragging rights amongst their peers who are reading the paper. So the local papers would report, so-and-so is freshman year of college and what they're studying, just to kind of, because like it's your neighbors who are reading it. So it's kind of the parents to brag about.
Without bragging. And then I also saw that there was another paper saying that in July of 1962, Shirley was the maid of honor at her younger sister's wedding in LA.
Yes.
So it sounds like, I don't know where Marilyn is at this time, but it sounds like a few of them are moving out west at this point. And I also saw that her parents sold the drugstore as well.
Yeah.
And moved to Phoenix, Arizona.
Yep. I think it's just a classic retirement kind of thing. And it seems that all their Bay City ties kind of ended around then. Yeah.
Now, jumping ahead.
Okay.
Shirley is now 25, and we see again in the newspaper that she marries Donald J. Fields on August 11th, 1963, at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in California.
Yes.
And you did a great job of finding this photo.
It's black and white. It's her wedding day photo, right?
It's her wedding day. Her wedding dress is really cool looking. It's very classic of the time. It's a white lace with the long sleeves, and then she has a beautiful, nice veil with a pearl tiara.
I remember the Bay City Times archives described her dress in detail.
Yeah.
And again,
they described her veil as a bouffant.
Yeah. And it's weird because she didn't live here.
No.
And I don't think her parents did by that point either, but yet
I don't think so.
The hometown paper of where she grew up reports on a former resident now getting married 3 time zones away.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen today. I'm not reporting on someone.
And it was a month later too that it was published.
Yeah. I think that's just bragging rights back home. Her parents paid to show people.
Yeah, because no one's home anymore.
Yeah.
The Fields were never there, or the Millers. Sorry, the Millers are not in Bay City anymore.
Yeah, and anybody that really cared, they would have invited or would have at least been told before you're not going to read it a month later in the newspaper if you were really invested in the family.
Donald Fields was 31 years old when he married Shirley. He is from Buffalo, New York, and he served in the U.S. Army. He also worked as a pharmacist, just like her dad. Mm-hmm. Now, Shirley had a few jobs after college. She was a pharmacist assistant. That's hard to say.
Pharmacist assistant.
Pharmacist assistant. Was she Donald's?
I don't know.
We don't know. Okay. And she was also a hospital dietitian, a medical secretary, and a nutritionist.
Yes, she was pretty diverse.
Yeah. Don and Shirley had 2 kids, Lori and Mark, born in 1965, and Mark was born in 1967.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. I always forget which one was the older of the 2.
Lori.
But yeah, Lori was older.
Yeah. I have a few of her things that she wrote.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
Lori's...
she's intense, that girl. Holy shit.
Yeah. Whew. She wrote some scary things with Jonestown.
Yep. Now, Don and Shirley, they shared a passion for social equality and eradicating injustices. And Shirley, she just had that pure hope for the future. They were in the thick of the civil rights movement, so they were really looking for change.
She had a hope for the future, but a fear of it as well.
Yes.
Of what it could turn out to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I know she'd be terrified if she saw what we're living in today.
She's probably happy that she's dead. Where was I? Oh, yeah, 2 kids. Yeah,
and they were
civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're social progressives, liberals.
Yeah. Oh, Shirley was easily attracted to the charisma of Jim Jones, who was preaching everything she wanted to hear. You know, he's got everything. You want social justice? I got you. You want equality? I got you. You want to end racism? I got you. You want no more world hunger? Got you. Poverty? Gone.
All the isms.
He's got all the isms.
Racism, ageism,
sexism.
It's all.
He's got it. That should be your first red flag. No one can tackle all of that. Yeah. But as a church and as a religion, I get it. You have a hope.
Join something. Better join a group that, at least my thinking would be, like, you're concerned with benefiting this world and not a hypothetical next fantasy world.
And I think Jones being from the Midwest probably helped Shirlee feel secure in it. Because I know I feel, no offense to big city people, but like, I like when I find another Midwesterner when I'm in a big city.
Yeah, he was good at being able to, his followers could project what they wanted out of a leader. Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said earlier up top, Jim Jones did begin moving his congregation to Guyana, which would then be Jonestown, the little town in Guyana.
They built it from scratch in the middle of the jungle. It was not an established town before they got there.
Yeah, like the first crew went in what, 1974?
Yeah, I think December of 73 or early 74 was when the first crews went to start inspecting the land, chopping down trees, and making way for a community.
But Shirlee and her family, they did not move to Guyana until July of 1977.
Correct. And that was the month after Jones himself got there. Pretty much in the summer of 77, there was a exodus to get People's Temple members out of the States into Guyana.
Why was there an exodus?
Basically, some prying eyes were starting to look at the organization. Some journalists had written articles that were published looking into or asking questions about what's really going on. Former members had left and were speaking out about the abuse that they had endured or witnessed. So Jones is feeling the heat, and he, persecution complex. We got to get out while the getting's good before the dragnet closes in on me.
And he's taking everyone with him.
And he could point to them and saying, they're coming after me, so they're going to come after you. We've heard that. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you.
No, it can't. Not if you don't do it.
I'm not doing the shit that...
I'm not doing what you're doing, so they're not going to come after me.
Yeah.
Anyway, when Shirlee and her family moved in July of 77... they would only last just over a year before Shirlee and her entire family would die in Jonestown, along with 900 others.
Yeah.
So how did Shirlee and her family get caught up in this deadly religion? We kind of touched on it a little bit.
It's not really, I wasn't able to definitively state how or when they met.
That's what I wanted to know. I couldn't find it.
I'm guessing that maybe around 1974, 75... seems to have been the time that the Fields family met or encountered People's Temple, whether it was they just popped in for a service, because there was a lot. I mean, they had services throughout the country and, do these Greyhound bus tours. They had major churches in San Francisco and LA.
Yeah.
So it conceivably, they just probably popped in word of mouth, or, maybe they had a mutual friend who suggested it to them.
Yeah.
But it does seem, by all accounts, that Shirlee, between her and her husband, she was the more headstrong, the leader between the two of them. He kind of took a backseat to Shirley's drive.
Yeah.
Don was the more passive.
Supportive, passive, like, yep, that's fine. I mean, he still agreed. He wanted those morals and those isms to be taken care of as well.
But it seems that...
she was the force behind it all.
Yeah.
Now, while the Fields family lived in California, I did see that you found this. It's weird that I'm like telling you what you found, but
it's been a few months. Well,
you wrote it like a year ago.
It's been over a year, so I could use a little refresher on everything right now.
The Fields family befriended the Harrison family.
Yes.
While they were in California, right before they became a part of the People's Temple.
Yes.
The Harrison family also had kids around Mark and Lori's age, and they also went to school together. So this is like a perfect little family friendship.
Yeah.
Now, Bob Harrison was interviewed in 2013, so this is where I'm pulling these quotes from, and I think he has since passed away.
Yes. A quick correction. He wasn't interviewed. He wrote a remembrance of the Fields family. Yeah, just an essay, kind of just his recollections of them.
So, Bob Harrison, he said that Shirlee was the outgoing one with a quick and active imagination, and he also said that his family enjoyed their company. They were intelligent and interesting and just fun to be around. He did mention, though, that Shirlee could be pessimistic about the state of the world and social ills. Like you said, she was hopeful for the future, but also fearful for it. So that fear really helps with that cult mindset.
Yeah.
Harrison went on to say that our failure as a society to end poverty and racial injustice rankled her. And Shirlee was searching for spiritual truth, and in this search, it led her to Jim Jones and the People's Temple. Yeah. And I think that's very natural. I think that if I were alive at that time, especially if he caught me in the 60s, I would have joined. Yeah. I think I would have. I would have been like, this is great. I love a rainbow family. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know.
All of his causes that he proselytized to the public anyway, they're all the most worthwhile causes to support. And that's the seductiveness of, compared to some other groups that are clearly destructive, that only have destruction from their outset or, self-defeating purposes. This started appealing to people's better angels, their worst demons.
Right. It sounded really good. Now, Harrison also recalls that Shirlee wanted to have her family get all of their passports because she really was worried about Jewish persecution in America.
And that becomes like chicken and eggs. Like, did her paranoia of persecution lead her to Jones, or did Jones stoke up the paranoia in her as he did with all of his, fear mongering of they're coming any day, they're going to put us in concentration camps. I mean, he was only a few decades behind the time or ahead of the time. He was just right between when America doesn't have concentration camps.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, you missed your window, Jones. The Japanese camps were gone, and the future camps aren't for a few decades. Yeah. They're here now.
We have one being built in our state.
Yeah.
Anyway, now, as time went on a little bit, the Fields family, they saw the Harrisons less and less, and the Fields family began taking bus rides on the weekends to San Francisco for meetings, like you had said.
Yeah.
Now, Bob Harrison, he remembers one time he asked Shirlee about People's Temple, and she just wasn't very open about it. But the only thing that she would say was the members were very diverse and from a wide range of ages, ethnic backgrounds, cultures, educational levels, and economic groups, and that they all prayed and wanted to end poverty and social injustice.
She's right.
She's right.
That's an apt description of what the parishioners believed.
Yeah. And then in the winter of 1976, the Fields family moved to San Francisco.
So one could infer it's Jones consolidating his flock, getting them closer to.
They sold as much as they could, and they gave away everything else, stating that all of the money was going to People's Temple and that they would live in housing that the group provided.
Yep, that was common. Jones stressed communal living, breakdown of the nuclear family unit.
Why would he want to break that down?
Because then he has more control. If you break down the archetype units that already exist, the family,
Is it because the man is like the head of the household, and if you don't have that set up household, then Jim Jones can come in and be the dominant one in any sort of aspect?
I think that's part of it, and just his wanting to just keep individuals isolated. You can't collaborate with others.
You're more
realize
likely
this is kind of screwed up, or this if everyone's paranoid of everybody else because you're all separated. Right. You and I might talk and be like, "Hey, I don't know about this Jones guy anymore. What do you think?" Well, you're not going to say that if the guy you're talking to might be a diehard loyalist and is going to go to Jones and
you don't know.
Shirley's talking shit about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just divide the family. You have them all live together in communal housings. Yeah. They sold their homes, properties, cars, and would sign over everything to the organization.
After the Fields family moved, the Harrisons did meet up with them a few more times, but it very quickly kind of
got sporadic,
faded out. Whenever the Harrisons would talk or ask about the People's Temple, the Fields family, they would clam up, and apparently they were instructed to not really talk much about it to outsiders.
Yeah.
When the Harrisons heard of the news of the Jonestown massacre and the 918 lives that were lost, they knew the Fields family was among the slain.
Yeah.
both the husband and wife, the Harrisons, husband and wife, they dealt with the news differently. And I found it interesting because I think there's a lot of parallels today in how people are handling things. Bob Harrison, he found the news sad. He was a little bit more compassionate about it, whereas he remembers his wife being angry with them, wondering and asking why they would take their kids to their doom.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah, being angry.
Like, I don't give a shit what you do to yourself. You have autonomy to take your own life. That's fine. But like, don't do it to the kids.
Yeah.
Leave them alone. They did nothing.
Yeah.
They did nothing.
Jones would tell his flock, especially once they were isolated in Jonestown, that when the government came, they would take their kids and torture them or turn them into, ugly, brainwashed capitalists. A lot of the parents might have thought in that moment, it's more merciful to kill my kid than to have them tortured by the government in a concentration camp for the rest of their life. I mean, not justifying it, but I'm saying this is to go to their mindset. You got to put yourself in their shoes and see things through their eyes.
To yourself. Like, I know, okay, when you hear things of people saying, I'm scared to send my child to school, to public school, because they might come back a different gender, you are telling me that you are actively sending your child, your flesh and blood, to a school, and you truly, truly in your heart think that they could have a forced operation on them? If you truly think that, you're a bad parent for taking your child to that school. You should take your kid out, start homeschooling, quit your job, change your whole goddamn life. If you really feel this way, I'm sorry.
They don't believe it.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. If you feel this way, you're going to act this way. And at least the people, a part of People's Temple, had integrity. God damn it. They had integrity, if nothing else. That's my soapbox. I'm done.
Okay.
Now, I really was interested to see who Shirley and Don were when they were at Jonestown. Yes. What were their roles and what did they do? Do you want to speak on that at all?
So Don had a very coveted position as a pharmacist.
Do you know why it was coveted? Just because it's a good position? I shouldn't say coveted.
It's important. He was the only pharmacist there.
Oh, yeah, important.
And it's important to note that the town, as it was set up, had like a real town, had a doctor's office, print shop, all different little facilities, and he had his own pharmacist building with his name on it. Shirley managed, or was the overseer of the herbal gardens that they grew there, at least for part of the time. I know she shared some interest in joining education to help teach students for a time, but I don't think that ever came to be. She was just interested in it. But yeah, she was in charge of the herbal gardens. And there's even some audio recordings of her speaking.
Yeah, she had multiple roles. I think I saw here that she was also a nutritionist. I did see that when you spoke to Stephen Jones, he knew the Fields family. He said that Shirley seemed to have a good spirit about her. Her children were sweet, lovely kids. They enjoyed being a part of the very diverse group of children that was had there. Mm-hmm. I did find it quite interesting that Stephen decided to continue after a happy quote and a happy thought and said, that doesn't mean it's a happy place.
Yeah. Jonestown was not happy.
Stephen, he hits different than the others.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he saw parts of his dad that no one else saw. Mm-hmm. And I think he always knew what was happening behind the curtain, even if he didn't know, because he was like a teenager, right?
Yeah, I think he was 21 when it all went down.
Okay.
Late 2021. Anyway.
Early, very
young man
but
for
like young
this to happen to or around. And he, as he told me, he saw a darker side of his dad early on when he was a child, and that never left. So he and his dad had a contentious relationship at the best of times, I would say.
His dad was like cheating and running around on his wife and all. He was never faithful. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And Stephen saw all of that.
Yeah.
Stephen did go on to say that Don was also a sweet person and that Don just kind of kept to himself and tried to be of service in any way he could. And he said that Shirley was the more strident one, the one that was more involved out of the two, but Don was a devoted husband and that they both were progressive thinkers.
Yeah.
They just wanted justice, equality. They just wanted simple living.
Yeah.
Now, you were mentioning a little recording of Shirlee. I do have a little bit of that recording. You want to listen to it. So it's a little hard to hear because it's very from the 70s, you know, a lot of noise in the background. But you'll hear Shirlee talking to Jim, and she'll refer to him as Dad.
Which was common. His followers would call him Dad, Father, some variation thereof. The recording was, they kept meticulous audio recordings in Jonestown. They would have daily, nightly meetings, multiple times a day, multiple times a week, and they recorded it all. And so we have archived all of these records.
They really thought they were doing something to leave behind for others to learn from. They really felt like they were doing a service to the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to hear the recording because you can hear her, like, her Michigan, Midwest, Bay City accent.
Yeah, because when I first heard
you can just hear it.
It was on, again,
the
website.
We didn't know it was her, did we?
Right. I found a recording of, them doing so there was different committees, I guess you would say, in Jonestown, responsible for, there's the livestock committee, or here's the crops, different tasks. So she was in charge of growing the herbs. So they would have these, nightly committee reports to, they'd read to Jones, what'd you do today? Or what's the update on your field? And so there was a recording of a woman giving this update on herbal gardens. It wasn't identified who the woman was, but through piecing together who would be the one giving this kind of update, and I played it for you.
Yeah, I remember that.
You not being from Michigan originally, I'm like, what does this sound like to you? And you're like, it sounds like a Midwestern accent.
Yeah.
And there was only, I think, 8 or 9 Shirleys in Jonestown. Only one from the Midwest. Only one who worked in herbal gardens. So,
yeah. And
quacks like a duck, probably a duck. So,
and that's been updated. Is that in Mac and Rebecca's website as well?
Yes, it's been updated that it now does identify her.
Wow, and you helped with that.
Yeah,
I helped with that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. So we identified an audio recording of Shirlee Fields' voice that had been unidentified for 45 years.
Now, again, in the recording, you'll hear Shirlee refer to Jim as Dad, and you can still hear her accent. Now, she also, in the recording, she mentions finding a medicinal plant that can aid in a longer life. Shirlee has a lighthearted tone when saying this, and Jones replies with, "Burn it."
Yes.
And so I'm going to play that little clip for you guys. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, well, then you didn't hear a clip.
Let's go herbal garden. Excuse me, Dad. We found something called Gotu Kola, which is the herb to preserve a long life. And it's... Burn it. Yeah, right.
And that was Shirlee Fields telling Jim Jones about the medicinal plant, and you can hear how he says, "Burn it," and they all applaud.
Yeah, and they laugh, and she goes, "Yeah, right." Like she knows they've already discussed, like it's, and this was months before everything fell apart, so it's already on their minds that they're talking about it. And they have like a flippant, because then he goes on, he's like, "I'm just joking. Anyway, what's the report?" And yeah.
It's very flippant. The way he throws death around so casually to get people to not believe him.
And they laugh, and then they start clapping, and it's just...
every day they are bombarded with these kinds of things. There's speakers going on at all times with Jim Jones's voice saying things. There's recordings always happening. So you have to know that there's a huge... constant information is being thrown at them. It's just constant, so it's making them not even think of one thing.
Yeah. What's the phrase that Steve Bannon used? Flood the system or whatever. It's when you just, I'm getting it slightly wrong, but basically you got to
look it up now. All right.
Yeah, flood the zone.
Flood the zone.
Basically, you just keep people confused and befuddled by not giving them a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a new tactic. It's been around.
Bombard them with information that they can't get their feet on the ground. And
now, like you said, the recording continues. It's a little long. It's all the recordings are pretty long.
Yeah.
And there's a woman that comes on and criticizes Shirlee for some reason. I couldn't really hear why. That's why I'm not going to play. It's a really grainy part of it. It just sounds like noise. But he criticizes a woman for criticizing Shirlee, or he chastises a woman for criticizing Shirlee. And he says, never criticize management in front of others. You can say anything to me privately, but you will not do it in front of the public. I'm making a point, God damn it, and it better be heard. Shirlee was in charge.
Yeah.
And he says Shirlee was in charge. Yeah.
Hierarchy was very important to Jones, and all roads led back to him. But he's got to have his tiered levels.
Yeah. And much like the families you had mentioned earlier, when the Fields family arrived in Jonestown, they were split up.
Yes.
Shirlee was assigned to dorm number 2. Donald lived in cottage 52. Mark was in cottage 21, and Lori was assigned to cottage 17.
Yes, so even the siblings were separated.
Yeah, I was surprised by that, but that makes sense, though. The kids are probably the ones most likely to rebel because they didn't choose to
And they're the most impressionable. You can get them to believe in, you can weed out any doubts early on.
That's
with
true,
kids.
too. Yeah, if you get them isolated, you can mold them.
You can make them diehards.
Yeah.
They don't think to question the same way an adult would have. Like, they just accept what they're told. They're kids.
Now, for a little more insight into the Fields family, there was one resident who journaled, and
Edith Roller.
And she journaled a lot, and
Constantly.
she mentioned Shirlee and her family a few times. One journal entry she wrote said Shirlee requested a separation from her husband, Don, claiming he was trying to dominate her. That's all that says. Don't know what that means.
They were living separately already.
Yeah, I don't understand.
And she, again, weirdly with their hierarchy, it was on Jones to either approve or disapprove a marriage separation in that world.
And then another journal entry was of a time when Shirlee was in a group session, and this is when they would talk about self-criticisms. They would confess their sins for community betterment.
Yeah, they were expected to look inward and say all the awful things you did, whether you did them or not. You would incriminate yourself on things that you might say you molested a child or you've killed someone, all kinds of things that...
Do they punish you? And that's why it's better for the community?
They wouldn't necessarily punish everyone at that. It's kind of, I guess, Scientology-like, where they, just want to have dirt on you.
Okay,
and
I see.
Like blackmail material, maybe, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, Shirley's confession was that she said, and it seems like, who was it again that has the journal? Edith Roller. She has a good memory, or she's making up quotes, but here's a quote from Shirlee from the journal entry. Okay. I have set myself up higher than those around me and acted like I was special, but really I am much lower. I have not cared about my children except in relation to myself. I have something inside that needs to come out, a feeling of love. And then Shirlee went on to admit that she was treating her husband poorly and that she has actually assaulted him out of anger before. So it's a very interesting situation there. There's also audio recordings of Jim Jones talking about Don and praising his work in the pharmacy, saying he's doing an exceptional job there.
In another writing, Shirlee mentions that Don had gotten off the learning crew, which the learning crew was kind of the punishment in Jonestown for minor infractions. It was the most physical labor. Like, you go to the fields, you do the jobs nobody else wants to do, but that need to be done. Doesn't say what he did, but somehow he pissed off Jones at some point to get that kind of punishment.
Dang, all right. I didn't see that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think I found that out till... Because after my articles were published, I kept doing Jonestown research, and I found some things that she wrote afterwards, after my article was published.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This one really stood out to me. There were also some letters that were found. At one point, Jones had his members write down what they would do if there was a final white night.
And a white night was their drill for like emergency situations, like guerrillas or GIs.
Like animal gorillas or people?
No, GUER.
GUE, okay.
Yeah, that, the worst case scenario, the troops are coming in, they're paratroopers, so we got a plan, DEFCON 8, that kind of thing. That's a white night. And often they would end with fake suicide drills.
The white night drills, they were semi-common, right?
They got more
increasingly
and more common. Yeah. There was one that lasted essentially 6 days. It was called the 6-day siege, where everyone was put on alert and no one was allowed to sleep. And they were told that there was enemies surrounding the town in the jungle. And as soon as they let their guards down, they'd be massacred.
So were they taken from their dorms and cottages and put into a common area, or like what? Describe a white night to me.
Yeah, so kind of the central building, I guess you would say, in Jonestown was this large pavilion. Mm-hmm. So no walls, but a ceiling, and that was kind of like the town square, I guess you would call it. So during these white nights, Jones would call everyone to the pavilion, everybody who was able-bodied, kind of get them all in one spot, huddled together, and say that the enemies are at the gates and we got to decide, are we going to fight against them or are we going to take poison ourselves so they don't capture us?
And did he have them drink
they did
juice
drink,
or something? Yeah. And so they've been prepped basically to drink something and not die. Like they've been
he
told.
started that, even by some accounts, he did that at least once in California with his, like, the upper echelon. Wow. And told them, like, they drank some wine, which was uncommon. And then after they drank it, he told them, it's all poison, you're going to die. And they waited around for like an hour, and then they just didn't die, obviously.
Yeah.
So he, piecemeal, a little bit at a time, dipping his toes of getting them used to suicide, death.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it's like to, can't imagine what it'd be like to drink something you fully believe is poison.
Right.
And then not die.
Right. Wouldn't you be mad?
A lot of them were.
Like, I'd be angry, and that would cause me to leave, I would think, but I'm not there. I don't know. I can speculate, but you don't know until you're there. You just don't.
Father's will spared you.
Yeah.
You live to fight another day. Isn't this a miracle that the poison didn't kill you?
Well, for this prompt, what they would do on the final white night, Shirlee, Dawn, and Lori all wrote a response. Shirlee wrote, I would like to help eradicate hunger throughout the world and preserve a communistic life for children, and that is what I would fight for. If I were to die tomorrow, I would have no regrets. Pretty much what you would expect. Don said that he would like to work in healthcare and in other countries, but he would fight for what he knows is right, especially for all the children here and in the world.
Pretty boilerplate.
Yeah, pretty standard.
Yeah.
Like, whatever you need me to say, I'll say.
Yeah.
And mind you, they're writing these down knowing that Jim Jones is going to read them. Yeah. Like, they know what they're supposed to say.
They're writing for the answer.
Yes.
They know that there's a right and a wrong answer, even though it's, what do you think you would do?
Yeah. Well,
there's one answer to what you would do. Right. You better get it correct.
The most interesting or disturbing letter was from Lori.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was all in. She's 12.
She's 12. It's easy to be all in.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
She said, or she wrote, I would have someone drop me in the middle of California in an airplane in the night. I would write notes to former members. The note would say to meet me in a certain place, a certain time. I could set a bomb to the place and blow them up, and me too. I could disguise myself as a dentist, then I could drill in one of the traitor's teeth and put in a beeper device. Okay, so there's a few things to unpack there.
It's pretty elaborate for a 12-year-old to plot how to assassinate,
right?
Essentially.
So the former members, people that maybe decided they didn't want to go to Guyana and that was their breaking point and they're broke from People's Temple, or they broke before that because they saw the abuses happening, the punishments. Some people do see the horizon ahead of them.
Everyone's got a story of why they quit when they did.
Now, the former members that did not go to Guyana, were they considered evil, bad? Like, what's the deal with Lori wanting to kill them?
There was no bigger enemy in Jones's mind than a former member who defected. They were traitors. They were instantly put on, like, he would harangue them at sermons to current members. He would, put death threats against these people.
Wow.
If you went against him, you were good as dead in his eyes. And so that's why the children were taught to hate former members.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. And then the beeper device, do we know what she's talking about there?
I think she's just
being a kid.
Like, I'll put a bomb in their mouth.
Trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah,
okay. That's a very 12-year-old answer, kind of. She's trying to be
I'll parachute in and probably trying to impress. You want to be a 12-year-old. You want to be the top of your class. So.
Yeah. So Lori was just ready to go all out. Now, as all of this is going on, there are still people back in the States that know Don, that know Shirlee, that know other people in the Jonestown community, and they're getting a little worried. Don's mom, she was trying to get in contact with Don in May of 1978. Don's mom called the U.S. State Department and wanted to know what was going on. She believed that he and his family were being held at Jonestown against their will, and she just wanted a check-in. That's all she was asking for. The State Department forwarded the request to Georgetown, which is the capital of Guyana, and they asked someone to check on the Fields family. Eventually, a U.S. consul arrived on November 7th of 1978.
Just a few days before things go sideways.
Right, just 10 or 11 days? Yeah. But I just want to note here that Don's mom started this process in May, and no one actually checked until November. So this is what they move slow, but also I don't think the American government cared that much. Correct me, yeah.
There was Don's mom wasn't officially part of this group, but there was like an organized group called the Concerned Relatives of former members or relatives of members that were still there who were actively like petitioning the government, the media, just anyone who would listen to something's going on here.
We need help.
Yeah. And so there was like the organized group of Concerned Relatives, and then there was still just individuals
who were trying. Do you think the government at that time was taking it as seriously as the family members were?
No.
I don't think so. Given what I've read, you've spoken to more people and done deeper research, but from what I've seen, I think they kind of wanted it just to go away. Yeah. And when it moved to Guyana, they said, oh, it's gone now.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of the relatives, when the government would check on people, they all said, I'm fine. I'm here of my own volition.
That's true, too, because someone did visit him and he did say, I'm well and happy. You can't take a full-grown adult.
It's not alleging that a minor was kidnapped.
It's just odd that the government took months to check on him. That's all I'm saying.
Guyana is an isolated country to begin with. It's hard to really put into perspective how isolated a compound Jonestown itself was.
Yeah, the nearest town was 6 miles?
Yeah, and you had to fly in or take a boat.
All surrounded by dense forest, jungle.
Yeah,
predators are in there. Like you're not. Yeah, you're not running away.
Yeah, you could run into a jaguar. You could run into a snake. You could get bit by a poisonous or venomous bug. You could, trip on a twig, break your ankle, and just die there. And
yep.
Yeah, and the only communication was via radio.
Yeah. They were so completely isolated, and then to add the fear, paranoia, the exhaustion, the hunger, because they were hungry.
They're working and
constantly. Things were just overall deteriorating.
Yeah.
And
the town was essentially, it could sustain about a 500 people population is the estimate, which it did for several years. But then when the Exodus brought as many People's Temple members as possible there in one fell swoop, you basically had 1,000 people living in a town that previously had 400 to 500.
Jim, he had complete control of everyone, but he was not in good health himself. He was, I don't know what his issues were health-wise. I do know that he was taking a lot of pills, like drugs, things that he should not be taking that mess with his brain. And, the kind of drugs that you hear about in the news.
He was taking amphetamines, uppers to get up in the morning, downers to calm himself down. Yeah. Constant cocktail. He was gaining weight.
Yes, very bloated.
There's some evidence he had a lung respiratory issue in his last few months that some say would have killed him in a few months anyway. Maybe a fungal infection or something in his lungs. He complained about breathing a lot and chest pains. He was falling apart physically.
Yeah.
As the town was falling apart as an institution.
And the way his followers viewed him, though, it's just insane they couldn't see it. Like, there's one document where Shirlee is talking about Jones, and this is how she speaks about him. She says, Dad's high points are high commitment, his dedication, how he works day and night. He lives at the level of the people, equality. No one is any more special than another. Some of these letters are written weirdly because you can tell that they're exhausted. So I am reading it word for word. Okay.
Yeah. The grammar can get a little slipshod.
Can get a little sloppy. How he works day and night. He lives at the level of the people, equality. No one is any more special than another. Dedication to ideals. Dependable to people. I believe Dad stands for those who cannot, and he believes individual and group criticism. Dad is willing to hear and believes in free thinking as long as he hears it first. Dad is the principal and he stands above all else. He never raises his voice. Dependable, not deviant such as molesting children. That's where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we're all equal, but he stands above all else. Some are more equal than others.
Yeah, but also like, he's okay with free thinking if you only give your free thoughts to him so he can manipulate them and make you feel bad about it, right?
Yeah.
And then he's not a deviant, like he doesn't molest kids. What? Why is that your bar, Shirlee? God damn.
Yeah, because the members would write accusations about other members just to, again, have dirt on
power,
them.
something.
Yeah, people would write fake confessions to themselves or about themselves. And
And then Lori, her daughter, wrote a little bit saying, Dad does not believe in God. He believes he is the only God. He will die for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lori, that poor girl didn't stand a chance. Now, Shirlee was someone who, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is what I'm assuming after reading and researching. I feel like she could have been someone who chose how to do the mass suicide murder, or she helped in that sort of conversation.
There was a letter that she definitely wrote where, for whatever reason, she was asked, like, how she thinks the community should carry out a mass death. Mm-hmm. And she wasn't the only one that was it was a writing topic that was given to a lot of people, not quite everyone to the degree of
every single person.
Yeah, but so she wrote back her suggestion, and you go ahead. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I pulled up the letter here. It's a little long. I'll try and just read fast because it does have it has a lot of insight in it. She says, Dear Dad, thank you, Dad. I am definitely in favor of revolutionary suicide because of the children and those who can't participate for their protection. When I worked in a cancer clinic, I saw people dying and deteriorating for no reason. How much better to lay down my body for a principle. Now, I feel that if we do commit revolutionary suicide, we should do it in such a way that we will be heard in all quarters of the world, and the most publicity we can get for communism. One way I think we can do this is by reference to food. Food and malnutrition is an emotionally packed subject. The idea that we could stop eating or cut down occurred to me last night in our meeting. This would be a different way to commit revolutionary suicide, and I wonder how many people who believe in suicide would be willing to do this. A slower way, but as much as effective. So she's like, listen, if we do a slow starvation of our whole community, we'll get the public's attention for this revolutionary suicide. Now, I hear revolutionary suicide. I see they're doing it for the children and for world. Mm-hmm. What will their death do? What do they think it will do?
I guess they thought the world would be so horrified by what they chose to do, but for their beliefs, that it would shake us out of our sleepwalking and get us to change our ways.
Okay.
That's what they hoped, I guess, that they thought maybe it would cause some effective change, some evaluation on society's parts.
It's such a nebulous concept of dying to die so others see it. I'm sure they knew it in their heart when they were there and could explain it better than what these letters are showing, but it's hard to understand today. Now, do you believe that Shirlee and or Don would have known that cyanide was in the area or on site?
I think, without question, Don, being the pharmacist, almost certainly had to have known that when it arrived, it was possibly. We know a few of the individuals who helped mix and distribute. I don't think his name came up actively, but again, there's only a few witnesses who survived who can pinpoint. But yeah, he definitely would have known that cyanide in large quantities was being kept in the town, because not everybody knew it. Obviously, it was, secreted away. Whether Shirlee knew,
right?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he told her, but apparently Don and Shirlee weren't on the best of terms towards the end anyway. So
didn't seem like it. Yeah. Well, back at home in the U.S., as you said, family members were getting a little stirred up. They were upset. They wanted to see their friends, their family, their loved ones. And eventually, the U.S. Representative Leo J. Ryan from California, he flies to Jonestown on November 17th, 1978, where he would lead an investigative delegation to Jonestown in response to all the complaints and the worries and the concerns.
Rights,
a human rights kind of thing.
Envoy him, some media. It was kind of odd how the whole trip was put together, and there was a lot of back and forth between Jones and the outsiders of whether they would even allow them in, because they were not invited, and Jonestown was private property. And Jones said they weren't going to let Ryan in at the gate, and there was some media members that Jones already had issues with, which might have set him on edge a little bit more, because you're bringing guys he doesn't already like.
Right. Well, they always hate the media who's telling your story in a plain, truthful way.
And obviously he didn't want the government, Leo Ryan, there at all.
Right.
But,
no, the government at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But his attorneys convinced him it was better to let him in than
just let it happen.
Try to do a positive spin. This is an impressive community. I mean, you've built this town from nothing. Let him in and show him. If you've got nothing, if
there's nothing to hide, then open your doors. Yep.
Yeah, that's what his attorneys kind of said. The quickest way to get them to leave you alone is to just show them that they've got nothing to cling to. But
when Ryan and his crew, his guests, showed up at Jonestown, they had done just that. Jonestown, Jim Jones, and the community set up a way to look great.
They put their best foot forward. They had a big banquet with food that the rank and file hadn't had in a long time.
Yeah.
They made it look like they had,
a feast when there wasn't feasting happening.
Yeah, most hadn't eaten meat for a while, but suddenly there was
meat available.
There was the Jonestown Express, the band performed all night.
What was interesting that I saw, though, was that only 162 of the residents were allowed to speak to the guests.
Yeah.
And they were considered the community task force. So they were the ones able to say positive things, look favorably upon Jonestown, but they also needed to keep the more erratic residents away.
The more problematic ones. They were babysitters as well as emissaries. The ones that Jones trusted to toe the line.
And in this moment, Jones is getting a little more paranoid. I mean, things are still going okay, but in his brain, he's like, this invasion, it's happening, it's happening. It's thick in the air.
And Shirlee and Don were on this list, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to say that. Yes, Shirlee and Don were a part of the task force. They were allowed to speak to the guests, and they also had to keep others away that weren't allowed to be around the guests. One could
infer that Jones wouldn't have picked them if he didn't trust them as true believers.
Right. Oh, I believe they were true believers. Yeah. I do. So Ryan loves the visit so much. He's completely bamboozled by it all. He's just seeing good things a lot. I think part of it was the laziness of an American, of being Yeah, it's good enough because I think if you did any sort of hunting or searching, like you looked at the living quarters of these people, or you did any sort of like, hey, where's the rest of your food after this meal? Where do you store your food? I think he would have found an issue.
And they kept certain buildings off limits. According to one account, the elderly women, they just crammed in one room and shut and didn't want...
You just can't have old people?
The super old and firm, they just crammed in one cabin or lodge. Yeah. Like they just...
It's weird.
The ones that they couldn't really provide adequate care for.
The ones that looked the most ailing.
More care than you could provide in the middle of a jungle.
Right. The actual sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ryan didn't really look very hard, and he goes up on stage and he speaks into the mic. He speaks to everyone and he says, questions have been raised about your operation here. Whatever the comments are, there are some people here who say this is the best thing that ever happened to them in their whole life. So he's saying that he went around, talked to some people, and they were like, yep, best ever. Love it here. And he's just going, okay, cool. Got it.
But it's important to note that according to like some of the other guests who survived, that they knew something was wrong, but you can't really voice it because you're outnumbered. So I bet Ryan was saying a little bit of what was expected of him.
Yeah, probably, because you're in that
the room
kind of,
I'm outnumbered. There's 1,000 people here with me and my 20 people.
Yeah.
And if they turn on us, we're screwed.
Yeah. So the crowd erupted in cheers as Ryan was like, you guys are great. This is great. Everything's great, whatever. But when he was still there, not up on stage, but he was done talking, he was back mingling, someone did slip a note to him asking for help, saying they wanted to get out. Slipped
it to a reporter who he mistook for him.
Yes.
But yeah, he intended to give it to Ryan. He gave it to a news reporter.
Yes.
But then that reporter tells everybody else in the...
Didn't the reporter tell Jones?
The next day...
It was the next day. Okay, that's what I want.
On camera.
Okay, so let's back up. Don't go too far ahead. I don't want to get too confused because a lot happens right here, so I don't want to get too messed up here. Okay.
Everything goes down quick.
So Ryan speaks on stage, says everything looks great, crowd erupts, and then someone gives a reporter the note saying, help, we want out. I don't know exactly what it said, but to that effect, it said,
I want to leave.
I want to leave.
Yeah.
The reporter does tell his group, not anyone else, but his people.
Yeah, Ryan and the entourage.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they do come back and ask if anyone else wants to leave with them, correct? And they end up picking up 15 more people that say, we want to leave.
Once he
hands are
starts
coming
asking,
up. Who wants to leave with me?
Suddenly the hands go up.
Right.
Not a lot, really.
15 out of almost 1,000? That's not that much. Yeah.
And Jones, of course, freaks out.
But did the reporter show Jones that letter the following day?
Yes.
That little note.
Right before...
And there's a documentary. Sorry, it pisses me off because he does it in such a way of like, if everyone loves it here, why'd I get this note?
So on the 18th, the afternoon, as Ryan's entourage is gathering up those who want to leave and surveying people, one of the reporters sits down and interviews Jones one more time, and he kind of throws it in his face of like, look at this note I got. And when you watch it, you can see Jones's face. To me, that's where who knows where exactly, but that's where I pinpoint, like, that's where it flipped in his head. Like, this is it. This is it.
And is this in the documentary from 2018? Jonestown, Terror in the Jungle?
Yes.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you want to see a good documentary about it, Jonestown, Terror in the Jungle.
Yeah.
Now, Ryan and the reporters and everyone, they've collected 15 defectors, and they want to leave. One of the defectors is...
Yep, he's a plant.
He's a plant, and he's a loyalist. So he's there, he's planted in, and everyone's driving to or getting to Port Kaituma.
Kaituma, yeah. It's the nearest town.
6 miles away.
Yeah.
It's with an airstrip in the jungle.
Is an hour drive. It's not 6 miles around town. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're driving there with the defectors, ready to go on trying to get to the plane. What they don't know is that there are some of Jones's guards following them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens first here?
The trucks pull up, the defectors and the Ryan entourage trucks pull up to the airstrip at Port Kaituma first. And there's 2 planes. They had a radio to get a second plane because they had more defectors than they anticipated.
The first plane is just a small,
just small to bring the media. So they're waiting for a second plane, and the second plane lands. And as they're loading, these flatbed trucks roll up from Jonestown, and 8 to 10 guys get off at the back with shotguns and rifles and just open fire. And there's camera footage, video footage of one of the cameramen filming it as they roll up, and he's shot, and the camera falls to the ground and keeps recording until it cuts to
there's no more
static.
Film.
Yeah. And
wow.
So there ended up 5 people were killed.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of footage of this. It's out there. The camera falls and then it's still rolling, so you can hear and see. You can
hear the shots. You can see people walking and running and screaming.
I do always encourage people to look at that stuff because we have the privilege and luxury of not being in that situation. But in order to have sympathy or empathy of any kind, I think it's important to see it and hear it and feel it as much as you can without actually doing it.
And the mole or plant you referenced, Larry Layton, as the gunmen were shooting, he pulled out a gun of his own and started shooting people on one of the planes as well. So there was like a 2-prong attack from the outside, and then there was an insider who turned and started shooting as well. But some of the others there were able to take him down. But then the other shooters all drove back into the jungle once their handiwork was done. They killed Ryan, one of the defectors, and 3 media members.
Yep.
And injured several more.
9
more. Okay.
Yep.
So then once they were done, there wasn't really any resistance. Everybody just fled into the jungle that could, and
that was it. Well, they had to go back and tell Jones what they did. Interestingly,
there was Guyanese military nearby standing there, and they didn't do anything because from their perspective, it's like, these are a bunch of crazy Americans shooting each other. We're not getting involved in this.
No way. Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Yep. So as the attack is happening, or as they leave, Jones back at Jonestown, he calls for a meeting at the pavilion. Now he's all in. There is a 44-minute recording of him informing the crowd that Ryan will be killed, and says that American and Guyanese military forces will come down on them, take their children, and torture them.
This is after years of them being indoctrinated that it's coming any day, and now's the day.
Now's the day. Now this 44-minute recording is known as the death tape.
Yes.
It is very eerie to listen to. Cole and I have both listened to this death tape in its entirety because I believe that this helps with sympathy and empathy in our world. But describe not necessarily what he says, but the feel of this tape. It's like a warbled, weird. It's almost like when you listen to it, like, am I on acid? What's happening?
For the longest time, it was thought that, because there's like weird music playing in the background, and for the longest time, it was thought that maybe there was someone like an organist playing music during it. That's not true. It was recorded over a music tape.
The Delphonics?
Delphonics song.
I'm Sorry?
Yeah. They were a
I don't think I
Philadelphia
know
soul.
that song.
I'll play it for you sometime. But it was slowed down, and Jones's speech was played over it or recorded over it. So there was no live music being heard at the time, but it adds this weird, there's like this, the Delphonic singers' voices are slowed and distorted in the background. And
did they do that because they were out of like tape? Or?
Yeah, I think they reused tape a lot.
Okay, he's not that artistic.
Yeah, they just reused tape a lot. And there's also, while the tape itself is 44 minutes, you can tell there's been research on there's numerous cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking for more than 44 minutes straight. We don't know when in those cuts or for how long they lasted, but could have gone on for
2 hours, 3 hours. We have no idea.
And why did he turn it off? Why did he record it at all? He recorded it because he wanted someone to find it.
He wants people to find it.
But he also wanted
certain things not found.
Yeah, he was trying to control his legacy even to the end. And there's one woman in it who argues vehemently with him against committing suicide. She was like asking
for alternatives.
Yeah,
she's like, can we do anything else?
Yeah. And she's largely shouted down by her compatriots.
Yep, because he is telling everyone it's time. The revolutionary suicide is now.
Yeah.
It's happening now, and this is the time to do it. And people are having a conversation and a dialogue, but he's just shutting them down.
Yeah, and there might have been others who argued against it, and he just didn't record those.
Yeah.
Who knows? But, I mean,
right.
If there weren't clearly enough.
No, not enough to overthrow. And as soon as Jones receives word that Ryan was killed, this is when he tells his congregation to drink the medicine.
Yeah.
Just in case we forgot, the medicine was a mixture of cyanide, tranquilizers, and flavor aid. I believe that they really did think that this would be painless because of the tranquilizers. Did they think that the tranks would hit first before the cyanide and you would just fall asleep?
Yeah. I mean, in the recording, he's telling them
they
it's
wanted
like going
it to
sleep.
be painless.
Yeah. And I don't think Jones intended it to be painful. I don't think he was a sadist in that sense necessarily.
He just wanted them all to die.
Yeah. And it probably was a legit mistake, if you want to use that term, I think they didn't know what cyanide poison. Apparently the doctor in town tried poisoning a pig a week or so beforehand. There was some I remember that, some reference to that, but I don't think they knew really what cyanide did to your body and what you experience. They just think, as he says in the recording, it's just like going to sleep. It's just like crossing over, and it's a horrible way to go.
Yeah. I know that cyanide poisoning is like it's not as fast as people would think it is, but what's actually happening? Do you know?
I believe it blocks your blood cells from being able to absorb oxygen. So while you're conscious, you're essentially asphyxiating. You're trying to catch your breath. You're trying to inhale, but nothing's coming. Oh. But you can imagine what that's like.
Yeah.
And eventually your mouth starts frothing, foam at the mouth. You're just trying to do anything you suffocate without any, you just
suffocate.
Yeah.
It's like drowning in air.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So you're not just nodding off, going to sleep. You are awake as you suddenly can't breathe.
The parents were instructed to give the drink or the medicine to their children first. And on the death tape, you can hear, he didn't cut this part out, which is wild to me. If he wanted people to believe that it was painless and like going to sleep, he let this part stay.
Can't control everything.
And but he could have. That's the thing. He could have controlled that, and he chose not to.
Maybe he didn't hear what was going on. There's probably screaming and chaos going on. And,
exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Shut it off. Don't let people hear that. He was the last one to die anyway.
Yeah.
He shot himself, that bastard. He didn't someone shot him. Yeah. He didn't die by poison, though.
Yeah.
So I don't think, because he died after everyone else. Him and his nurse were the last two standing, or a nurse.
Yeah.
Sorry, not his nurse.
We don't know for a fact that they were the last two, but they're the only two who died from gunshot wounds, and we
just assume
it's the last ones. But
I don't know. Now, the parents, when they were instructed to give their children this medicine, you can hear the children screaming and crying. And I will warn you right now, I am going to play roughly 10 to 15 seconds of those children. It is heart-wrenching, and it brings me to tears every time. If you do not want to listen to it, or you're somewhere where you don't want other people to hear it, again, 10 to 20 seconds. This is your time to skip ahead or find a better place to be. But I am going to play it, and I will link this death tape in the show notes. So if you want to hear the whole thing, you can.
Friend, you're sitting there. Show your love for one another. Make children come. Don't let them drink. Calm. Let's get calm. Let's get calm. To us, we had nothing we could do. We can't separate ourselves from our own people. For 20 years laying in some old rotten nursing home.
Okay. I'm going to take a minute. That always gets me. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Always tough. And if you listened to that with me, thank you. Please, I do urge everyone to listen to it. It'll just strike you in a way that will force empathy onto you and into your heart and soul. But the truth, I think, is necessary. The truth isn't always pretty. It's ugly. Yeah. It's it's not good all the time.
Go through life with rose-tinted glasses. You don't see the red flags.
Now, Jones, he believes that this mass suicide or forced suicide,
revolutionary suicide, as he like to call it,
that this will show the world it'll show them the way that we're wrong. That, like you said, people need to exit this world by their own hand in order to not, I don't know, that video or that audio is still in my head, those kids crying, and you can hear it in the background. But I just don't know how that's a revolutionary suicide. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And there were even people that couldn't take the medicine. I'm sure after seeing the kids die the way they did, if you didn't have kids of your own, you might not want to take that medicine or the flavor aid, the drink, and they were injected forcefully. Like, they found people dead with injections because they didn't take it.
Bent syringe needles.
There were guards with guns that were keeping them there too. Like, these people had no way out.
And weirdly, everyone with a gun, except for all those gunmen and men armed with crossbows, they all took the poison.
Yeah, they didn't turn on anyone.
Yeah, and the handful of individuals who survived by escaping, essentially, or hiding, they did go past guards or say something to them, and the guards didn't stop them.
There is a story of a few people just walking by and kind of looking at the guards that they knew. Yeah, they know everyone.
They're not strangers. They all knew each other.
So they look right at him and with a look of just kind of do it.
Yeah, and the one guard
I'm going to make you shoot me.
I can't remember if it was Stanley Clayton or Odell Rhodes. They were two of the survivors separately. They just basically I'm not doing this, and walked off. But they walked past the guards, taking their chance of shoot me if you want. And the one said well, have a nice life, and just didn't do anything to stop him.
But didn't stop himself either.
Yeah, it's important to note also that the children were killed first, so that afterwards, if you're a parent, if you're Jones, you've removed their own incentive to live. You've just killed your kid.
That's why I said if I was not a parent, I would not. If I was a parent and I just killed my kid that way, and all the reality of, wow, what he just said was a lie, I don't deserve to live. Yeah. I would probably take my life immediately if I took my child's life.
One of those two men I referenced, again, I can't remember if it was Stanley Clayton or Odell Rhodes, but one of them who was close to the kids, I think he was an assistant teacher or something with his account, he was holding the kids one by one as they were trying to give them some last minute comfort as they died. And eventually he just,
Well, November 18th, 1978, just a few hours after the massacre, Guyanese soldiers, they hacked their way to the 909 bodies that were piled up and scattered about. Some had their arms around those near them. Others, like I said, had syringes stuck into them. It's clear that murder happened here.
Yeah.
4 other temple members died in Georgetown, the capital. They were out of the city or out of Jonestown to do other things.
Outposts. Yeah.
But 4 other temple members died after getting word to do so. Hey, it's time. And
mom killed her teenage daughter and her 2 younger kids with knives.
With a knife.
Yeah, not even poison, just cut her own throat.
Well, she didn't have poison. Yeah. Jesus. And then there was the 5 that were killed with the Representative Ryan. Yeah. So this totals to 918, which is the greatest loss of American lives from a non-natural disaster until 9/11 happened.
Yep.
Bodies were everywhere and with little to no identification on any of them. If they did have a form of ID or a passport or anything, that was taken upon arrival.
Yeah.
So they didn't have anything on their person. So a lot of people were kind of just unidentified for a while. Now, when you spoke with Mac, he mentioned that his wife, Rebecca, had 2 sisters in Jonestown.
Yes.
And they both died there, right?
Yes.
And did one of her sisters even have a child with Jim Jones while she was in Jonestown?
While with People's
Temple.
He was already, the child was born in the U.S.
Okay. Do you know if Rebecca met him ever?
I know. I know she met Jim Jones at least once.
Really?
But I don't know if she ever met her
nephew. Okay.
The nephew also died in Jonestown.
Both the sisters and the children died there.
Yeah.
Mac and Rebecca were the ones who started to put everything in one place, including the names of those who died.
Yeah, Mac was the first one to have all 918 names. Yeah. He was the first one to publish that.
Mac did say that listing the dead from Jonestown didn't happen until a few weeks later, like by the officials. They didn't start writing names down or really knowing who was who until a few weeks after the massacre.
There was a big, initially, like, the number of dead was, that number
was like 400, and then it kept growing.
And then,
It was a big mess. Yeah, there was a lot. Mac also said that even the earliest identifications, including his sister-in-law, they weren't known until late November or early December.
Yeah.
And he said we knew they were there.
Yeah,
we knew these people were there, but we couldn't say
which one
that
is
person.
Which. Yeah.
After the massacre, Donald and Shirlee were initially identified as G54 and G55. They weren't fully identified until later in the process. Yeah. Bodies were flown from Guyana to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. 412 bodies went unclaimed. Mark, the son of Don and Shirlee, he was a part of this 412. Yeah. And he was buried in a mass grave in Evergreen Cemetery in Oakland, California.
Most of the unclaimed 412 were juveniles just because they didn't have many records to compare the bodies against as far as, fingerprints, dental records. Lori, she was identified somehow, and she has her own individual grave, as do both of her parents.
They're all three buried in individual graves side by side at Eden Memorial Park in Mission Hills, Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
Shirlee was one of 8 Michiganders that died in Jonestown. Mm-hmm. And I would just like to say the names of these victims as well, because like we said up top, it's far too often that everyone is lumped in together and everyone is just known as Jonestown or known as Kool-Aid or just all one thing. Yeah. When these are individuals, they made individual choices and they all went to People's Temple for their own reasons. And most of them were good. We have Jeffrey Carey from Flint.
He was one of the pioneers of Jonestown. He was one of the first group to go down there and start clearing the forest, the jungle.
Oh, dang.
Late 73, early 74. He was one of the,
Okay. Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And then the Hicks family of 4 from Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Barbara Cordell from Grand Rapids. Mary Beth Wotherspoon, also from Grand Rapids.
Yes.
And then Shirlee Fields from Bay City, Michigan.
Mary Wotherspoon, I interviewed her sister.
Oh, you did?
Who last year, maybe it was a year and a half ago, wrote a book, a memoir about her sister. So, yeah.
Wow.
And also of note, one of the survivors of that day, Odell Rhodes, is also from Detroit. So there was a 9th Michigander there that day, and he survived.
Wow, okay. Yeah. But before we close this episode, I wanted to have a couple quotes from Stephen Jones.
Okay. He's good for those.
He's so good. Oh, my God.
He has a lot of writings on Mac and Rebecca's website as well.
Oh, that'd be a good place to look.
Yeah, there's like an author page with all of his essays.
And if you want to see Cole's writing about Shirlee Fields, it is also on Mac and Rebecca's website, but I will also link the individual ones too from the MLive accounts. Yeah. Stephen Jones is one of the people still alive today that really understands his dad on a different level than other people do. Yeah. Most people, I would say. Because of the age that he was, I mean, growing up with it 100% of the time, from birth, but also being a teenager, young adult in Jonestown during that time specifically, that's got to be very trauma inducing because you remember a lot from that time and it all kind of sinks in there and then it's just there. You can't really grow out of it. It is what it is.
The reason that he survived was that he was not actually in Jonestown the day in question. He and several other young
basketball
men,
players, right?
They were part of Jonestown had its own basketball team, and he and the team were in Georgetown playing games at the time. And Marceline Jones, Stephen's mom,
she died.
She did die there, but by his account, she made it a point to get him and some of his other brothers out of the town for the basketball tournament.
Because did Jones try to keep them from going to the basketball tournament?
Yeah, he wanted it canceled. And then even after the order was given back at Jonestown on the 18th, he radioed to Georgetown trying to get Stephen and his brothers to come back. And they were like, no, we're not coming back just to die. It's stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Stephen has some of the most in-depth quotes, not even in-depth, but just you can see the levels of emotion and the levels of processing and the levels of him trying to understand.
He's a very thoughtful guy.
Yeah, very thoughtful. And one of the quotes he says in reference to Jonestown that some of the very best people I've ever known, many of them were in the temple. Some of the very worst people were in it too. It was a rich community with so many lovely people. Better people than me lost their lives on that day.
Yeah.
And then he also left you with kind of a warning in your final article with him. He says, the deaths can still serve as a warning to others who may find themselves part of a movement that turns controlling. No matter how good something initially appears, one should listen to their gut. No matter how good something initially appears, one should listen to their gut when they begin sensing something amiss. This is especially true when a movement's leader presents him or herself as being superior to the flock.
Yep.
And I just wanted to leave on that
Seen a
quote,
lot of
that warning.
Today.
Yeah.
The last decade or so.
But yeah, that's our first Jonestown installment. A little teaser for the next one. It's not going to be next episode. I have no idea when it'll be.
Pepper them.
Yep, we're going to sprinkle them in. But we did have a lovely visit with photographer Tim Chapman last year. We visited him in his place, and he gave us a lovely interview. He is one of the first photographers on the scene.
Yeah.
He was working for the Miami Herald at the time, and he let us look at his personal collection that he kept in the Miami Museum.
Yep.
And
if you've ever seen a color photograph of the Jonestown carnage, odds are he's the one who snapped it.
Yes. And he just had a great perspective as an outsider coming into this and being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What happened?
Never even heard of Jim Jones until
Not
he
a
got
clue.
flown in to take photos of
So
it.
I will go through, grab some audio recordings from him as well. And probably in a few months, like I said, pepper through. It'll come back. But yeah, if you like Jonestown, this is kind of a Jonestown background sort of podcast, I guess, for a little bit anyway. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. And in the meantime, follow us on Blue Sky at Borrowed Bones or my personal Blue Sky account, Daughter of Marauders.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you for listening.